Hello and welcome to today's video. So we're going to make a hot crust pastry. We're going to turn it into pork pies. I'll probably do another video about the pork pie meat, how I prep that and season it and what have you, because that'll probably make a video in itself. So today we're going to make hot crust pastry. So we've got strong white flour there, 700 grams. This is enough to make 12 pies, by the way. 12 sort of 3-inch pork pies with the lids. So if you're not making that much, obviously you need to reduce the recipe by quite a bit. So we want 300 grams of lard. The first 150 we're going to put straight into the flour. And we're going to turn this into a crumb. We're going to mix it through like you would any pastry, really. The second half of the lard we're going to put into a pan with the butter, the 50 grams of butter, the salt, and 300 grams or millilitres of water. I mean, millilitres and grams of water is the same thing. And we're going to bring that pan just to the boil. We don't want it sort of fizzing away, but we do want to bring it to a boil. Sticky bit of butter. We got it. I do weigh my water in all my recipes, actually, because when people tend to tell you they've made a recipe and it was too wet or it was too sticky, or it's usually because they've used a measuring jug and just sort of filled it to the mark and thought that were good enough. But a lot of measuring jugs, I mean, if I used every jug in my kitchen, I wouldn't get the same amount of water twice on the same measurements. But a scale guarantees you've got the right amount. You can hear in the background, I've just put the pan on, warming the lard, butter and water. Put 6 grams, which is more or less a teaspoon of salt. And we'll turn this flour and lard into a crumb. It's a bit of an old mixer, but it does the trick. You will notice there's quite a few cut sections in the video. I mean, the video was 2.5 hours in total, so obviously I've cut it down to the bits you need to see, or the bits that I thought would be most helpful. So we crumbed the flour and the lard, and now we're adding the hot lard and butter and water in. There's 2 schools of thought here. You can either leave it to mix for 5 or 6 minutes, or you can just bring it together and tip it out. I've got to say I've tried both methods and I don't really see a difference. I mean, I have seen recipes that say it develops the gluten in the flour, and I've really not noticed a difference, and I have tried it both ways. I think you can either give it a quick mix and just bring it together with a wooden spoon handle, or you can use a mixer and either a dough hook or the K-beater as shown. and it is quite it's quite a damp mix, so it's quite unusable in this state. It does need to go in the fridge for at least an hour. I find it easiest to use when it's roughly around room temperature. If it gets too cold, it'll crack while you're trying to use it, and if it's too warm like this, obviously it's quite unusable. You just give it a bit of a roll round and check that there's no big lumps of flour that's somehow been missed. Tip of the day, put your cling film out first, and then you don't need to struggle, like me. We'll just wrap that up, and like I say, we'll stick it in the fridge, give it an hour or so. So we're just going to weigh off for the pies. The pies I use 70 grams for the base and 40 grams for the lid. Or thereabouts. And the mould you can see on the right hand side is just a pudding mould. Well, I use it for my Yorkshire puddings as well. I think it came from Morrison's. They're not very dear. They come in a 4-pack, I think, for a few pound. But they are very good for making the pork pies in. Just right size. And I've never had any of them stick, so there's no need to pre-grease. And the meat mixture, I tend to make this in bigger batches, but I bag it up 800 grams in a bag and 65 grams thereabouts for each pie. I'll do a meat prep at a later date. It's just a mixture of shoulder and belly pork that I use. You can just use mince. Add a bit of bacon and add a bit of belly pork in, whatever you want in your pie, really. So we're going to roll this base out, but we're not looking to get to size. We're looking to roll it out roughly to the thickness we want the base, and then we'll just mould it into the mould. And try and use as little flour as possible, because the flour does alter the recipe, so the more flour you put down to prevent it from sticking everywhere, you're actually altering the pastry, because it all winds up in there. I'd rather it sort of sticks to the pin slightly and struggle a bit, if you like, and to have a floury pastry that goes rock hard. So we just chuck the meat in like that. That's supposed to expel any air you've missed under the pastry. Put another sprinkling of flour down. That's just a printed pie top cutter. It's not the best. You could use a cup, a glass. I won't like that, but. Must have been happy in my work. You're just going to use some water to seal around edges. I have a bit of a habit of humming. I don't realise when I'm doing it. I'm just going to bring it together on top there. And then we'll use a fork just to finish round the top. A couple of methods you can use. You can either do like this, use the fork, bring it back to a circle. Didn't have to be too perfect. How many perfect pot pies do you see? Or you can pinch them in. Like that. But the fork method is easier when it comes to egg washing. So I do prefer the fork method, but the other method, when you pinch them in, you do seem to say a little bit more often. Yeah, I do make these in, like I say, in dozen batches with the bag of 800 grams of meat. Just like that. So once they're made up, we're going to rest them again. So they go back in the fridge for an hour. And then we're going to set the oven to 180 degrees. And it gets down to about 15 minutes. And we'll pull them out of the fridge. We'll give them an egg wash. We egg wash twice. So this is the first egg wash. Don't use a brush like that. I'll swap it in a minute. It's the wrong brush. It's not the wrong brush. It's just harder to wash them with that brush. I think it was just closer to hand, so it's the one that got picked up. So we give them all a good egg wash. And then once the oven's up to temperature, which it should be now, we'll get them straight in. So they're going to go in for around about 45 minutes. But when they've got 15 minutes to go, we're going to pull them back out. We're going to give them the second egg wash, which will just give them a bit more colour. They will darken as they cool. And the second egg wash just gives them a bit more shine and colour. And at this point, when you take them out, if you swap wherever they're catching with the ones that need a little bit more and put them in the hot edges, which I didn't bother doing. put them back in. Another 10 minutes or so. But just keep an eye on them. When you get down to your last sort of 10 minutes, just keep an eye on them. You can see the bubbling up there, so the meat should be all cooked right through to the centre. You want to see them bubbling like that. It should be up to temperature. We will check it. But that is a good sign that they are done. You're looking for somewhere above 90 degrees, really. Anywhere sort of 90, 100 degrees is perfect. Once it goes above 95, I'm happy. So 90, 95 degrees, 100, I'm fine with all that. They'll all be fine. You see these tins, I've never had them stick. I've never had any of them stick. The only time they'll stick is where the pastry's gone over the lid as well. So you might get a little bit of a catch, but it won't stick in the tin. We'll leave these to cool for about half an hour. We'll make the jelly up. So the jelly I'm making up, I'll do 2 batches of pies. So it's 500 grams or millilitres of water, 2 chicken oxo cubes, and some pork gelatine. You can use a normal gelatine. I've also done this both ways. This seems to give the best flavour, so I put a couple of chicken oxos into the water and then bring it up to around 85 degrees, add the pork gelatine in, and then use a syringe to jelly the pies. Or you can use a small funnel, or you can use a jug. Just mop it off the top with some kitchen roll if it does go over the top, because it'll go quite sticky. Well, unless you like it like that, then leave it. That's the beauty of making it at home. You make it how you like it. About 12 grams pork gelatine. Like I say, you can use a jug, a funnel, whatever you've got really to jelly these up. And if you're wanting them full to the brim, then jelly them up. Give them an hour and a half, and then jelly them again. As the jelly cools, it shrinks again, so you will fit some more in, but I usually just do mine once. I find there's enough in there. Well, I'd just like to say thank you for watching. I enjoyed making it. It took a little while longer than it usually does, but hopefully you'll find it useful. And if you'd like to ask any questions, please go ahead, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks once again.